Welcome to the Healing Storm Apothecary Podcast, your source for practical herbal education, plant wisdom, and natural wellness insights. Join Master Herbalist Shannon Storm as she shares traditional herbal practices, helpful guidance, and real-world knowledge to help you grow more confident in your herbal journey.
Hi, welcome to the Healing Storm Apothecary Podcast. I'm Shannon Storm, your host and master herbalist, and I am here to teach you about herbs, herbal products, and holistic wellness in general. As always, I want to remind you that herbalism, herbal products, and wellness services are a complement, not a replacement for modern medicine, and this is for educational purposes only. So let's get into today's herb. And today's herb is one I guarantee you have seen before and thought it was a weed. And that is yarrow. Yarrow is one of those herbs that can look unassuming and grows by the side of the road, grows all over the place, in meadows, and we just ignore it. Looks like a weed. It's just a weed. But it has a very interesting history. And it goes back thousands and thousands and thousands of years. It is one of the most fascinating plants that does not always behave in a way that it should. And that's what we're going to be talking about, because it can be stimulating and relaxing. It can be astringent, and it can be vasodilating, and it can be cooling, even though it contains a lot of aromatic volatile oils, which is, makes the smell extremely strong. It has also been traditionally associated with circulation, but also helps with stopping bleeding. So this is just one big plant of contradictions, and that is why it's often called the wounded warrior herb, the master of blood, and the herb of contradictions. So let's talk a little bit about how long yarrow's been working with us. So a lot of the herbs I talk about on here, we know have been used for hundreds of years, maybe 1,000. But yarrow, we have known scientifically, archaeologists have found this in the burial sites of Neanderthals. So approximately 65,000 years ago, they're finding yarrow in graves of Neanderthals. This is usually in Iran area. However, in Spain, in some Neanderthal graves in Spain that dated back to 40,000 to 60,000 years, they have also found yarrow. So we know yarrow has been used by people since pretty much the dawn of time, that as we know it as humans or bipedal people. So 65,000 years ago, they were using this herb. In 1753, it was finally named Achillea Millefolium. The name connects yarrow with Achilles. Achilles learned healing from the centaur Charon. And yarrow has since then been associated with battlefield wounds, hence the warrior's wound. Yarrow, because it is so easily found, people would get hurt on the battlefield, they'd go grab it and use it to help heal the wounds. The Iliad contains the story of give me a second. Patroclus, tending a wound with a bitter herb, which was yarrow, after removing an arrowhead and washing the wound. So this herb, yarrow, was even mentioned in the Iliad. This is telling you how long this herb has been revered in terms of healing and treatment. And get into more, but it's really incredible how this is coming together. So let's talk about some of the botanical basics of it. The common name is yarrow. We all know that. The Latin name is the Achillea Millefolium. It is in the Asteraceae family. I'm not good with the Latin names, so bear with me. But that is one of the biggest families of plants and herbs. As with other plants, yarrow, the whole plant is used. Stems, leaves, flowers, some of the root. It tends to, the leaves tend to be a lot more bitter, and the flowers are considered more medicinal or healing. But when you put it all together, it makes a really incredible formula to help promote healing. So I mentioned yarrow, but there are a lot of other names depending on where you're at, where you're coming from, where you've been. Some traditional names that are no longer used: milfoil, old man's pepper, thousand-leaved, nosebleed. If you've ever heard grandparents talking about nosebleed weed, they're talking about yarrow. Knight's milfold, soldier's herb, bloodwort, staunchweed, and the warrior plant. Depending again on where you're at, what your history is, where you've gone to, you're going to hear these different names for yarrow. When we see yarrow, we see straight stalks. The leaves are kind of feathery and alternate one after the other. The clusters of flowers form and have a yellow middle, kind of like an umbrella spray, kind of like the Queen Anne's lace. And the petals of the flowers can range in color from white to purple, pink. So just depends on which one you're looking at. It is highly adaptable and grows through much of the northern hemisphere. Europe, Asia, North America. It can be found in meadows, plains, mountains, roads, woods, roadsides, paths, clearings, valley. If you have green, you probably have yarrow in there somewhere. And it usually flowers between late May and through September, depending on the weather, might get a little bit into October. So it's a very hardy plant. And like I said, you can find it everywhere. I do not recommend using plants by the roadside because it has the exhaust, but you will find tons of it there. Now, before we get into the heart of yarrow, let's have a word from our sponsors.
Sponsored by Lawn Squad. Quick and easy quote, and you can be on your way to having the best lawn in the neighborhood. Watch the progress as Brian from Lawn Squad brings Danny's lawn back to life. Visit lawnsquad.com. Sponsored by Atlas Wood Floors. Serving the area for more than 34 years. Wood floors, luxury vinyl plank. Anything that you put on your floor, they can handle it. Check out their Google reviews and give them a call today. 301-948-9663. That's 301-948. Wood. Be sure to ask for Jeff Koger or go to atlaswoodfloors.net. Sponsored by A&S Construction is a local and award-winning woman and minority-owned business located right here in Frederick, servicing Frederick County and surrounding areas. A&S Construction specialize in roofing and siding, windows and gutters, and they can even build you a new patio or deck. Call 301-703-2157 or email info@ansconstruction.net. You can get $750 off any roof or siding replacement or $50 off any roof repairs. Just tell Sandra that Danny sent you.
All right, now let's get into the heart of yarrow. The first thing we're going to talk about is its taste. And I've kind of hinted to this already, is that it is bitter. I wouldn't necessarily want to drink this as a tea by itself. But it wouldn't be one I would go to on a regular. The bitter is very noticeable, and it's strong enough that many people will not drink it as a tea, even to help themselves, unless you doctor it. So just putting that out there. It's very pungent because of the volatile oils in it. So it is a very strong tea. Even when you just use a little bit of it, it's very strong and not the best tasting. Another problem with drinking it as a tea is that it is astringent. And that means it's going to dry out whatever it's touching. So almost like a puckering sensation like you get with lemons. Like, yeah, you're going to kind of feel that way when you're drinking it. It becomes really noticeable with any mucous membrane it hits or when you have it in your mouth or anything. So drinking it is like a last resort, but it is definitely sometimes needed. This bitter, pungent, astringent taste is not simply descriptions of flavor. It is really about what this herb does. And that's why I always start with taste, because herbs taste a certain way. And that tells us a lot about it. It teaches us about what it can do, even with herbs that are contradictions to themselves. One of the many experts, Matthew Wood, has said that yarrow is unusual because its flavor profile would suggest a stimulant, relaxing, toning properties, and yet it is one of the best cooling stimulants there is. So it's definitely a contradiction in and of itself, but the taste is super important. Now let's move on a little bit to some of its actions that I've already mentioned, because I've mentioned it's bitter, it's tonic, it's let's see what was it in my notes here: stimulating and relaxing, astringing and vasodilating, cooling. Even though it has the warming aromatic volatile oils and traditionally associated with circulation, and yet stops bleeding. So let's talk about all of those things and how they work in yarrow. So let's first talk about the astringency and the vulnerary attributes of it. It tightens skin, it tones, it firms tissues that are considered overly lax or too loose. It helps with the stopping of blood because of this, in both internal and external situations. Hence drinking the tea. Sometimes if you have a bleeding ulcer, sometimes drinking a little bit of this can help with that. There's other herbs that are better for it, but you only have yarrow, it's not going to hurt. It is also vulnerary because it's always used with wound healing. And that's what vulnerary means. It's a wound healing herb. So it was able to stop the blood on the battlefield, in the kitchen, wherever. It stops the blood. Some sources. Another one is the bitter tonic. So digestion, appetite, and digestive secretions. It helps with all those. It helps you want to eat, because in my opinion, and this is straight up my opinion, I don't have scientific fact on this, but anytime I drink something that is astringent or super bitter and the mouth starts getting dry, I want to eat to moisten everything back up. And that's my guess is why it promotes appetite. But it does help with the liver, the gallbladder, the stomach, and both the small and large intestines. It gets all of that moving and supports it and keeps it healthy and efficient and effectively moving and working. It is a circulatory stimulant on the venous side. So on the return flow of blood to your heart, it is mainly on that side. It has also traditionally been used with sluggish venous return and patterns such as hemorrhoids and varicosity, so varicose veins. So one of the things I've done is make a poultice or a fomentation and put it on varicose veins. It can help with any of the aches, pains that could come with them. It is a diaphoretic, so it makes you sweat. It is a stimulant and a relaxant diaphoretic. Again, it's contradictions here. It relaxes the tension in the superficial blood vessels and capillary beds. So it's relaxing in that sense. But it's stimulating because of all the volatile oil and the warming. So it brings all the blood to the surface and helps you sweat it out. So it definitely supports fevers. It helps with moving some of that icky feeling that you have with a fever out of your body. So again, you could take a bath and put yarrow in the bath. We do bath tea bags at the Healing Storm Apothecary, and you sit in the bath with the yarrow in the tub. You could drink warm yarrow tea. Again, not everybody's going to drink that, but you can try. It can't hurt. Let's just say that. Another interesting fact about this herb is that it is an emmenagogue. It helps with stagnation in the menstrual flow. So it was often used traditionally in that way too. The interesting part about this as well is that if the flow is excessively heavy, it will slow it down. So it'll get it moving if it's stagnant, but it will slow it down if it's too excessive and too heavy. So it's a great herb to have on hand during that time of month. It is a diuretic. The hot infusion tends to be more diaphoretic, while the colder is more diuretic, which drains the fluid out instead of sweating it out. And it is an alterative, inflammation modulating, antiseptic herb. It supports multiple levels of elimination, the sweat, the urine. It moves bodily fluids, so it moves blood. There's not much on it in terms of moving lymph fluids, so I don't want to say it moves lymph, but I do know it does move blood. It can help with inflammation, reducing it, and it can also, because it is such a strong wound healer and was used on the battlefields and everything, the antimicrobial and antifungal actions within this herb are documented. It can help keep infection out of wounds. So it's really incredible there. So let's talk a little bit about yarrow being the master of blood. Matthew Wood is cited as calling yarrow master of blood. And if you haven't read anything by Matthew Wood, you really should. He is an incredible herbalist. I was introduced to his work by one of my teachers, and I just can't get enough of his information because he's very knowledgeable, and he has several books out. So if you get a chance, you should read some of them. He says this because it increases the circulation. It influences blood vessels, both by constricting and by dilating. It tones tissue, so it relaxes it, but it also tones it and makes it tense when needed. It stops bleeding. It just helps in so many different ways on both ends of the spectrum. It's like it helps you get back to a homeostasis, a balance between being too lax or bleeding too much or whatever, and being too tense and not bleeding enough. And so it keeps everything in balance so that things are working effectively and efficiently. So yes, it works on the circulatory system and the vasculature and the blood circulation. It helps in the digestive system with the liver and the spleen and the stomach and the intestines, and the kidneys even a little bit. But this is one of the few herbs that I know of that works with spleen. So it will help keep the spleen functioning effectively. It helps with urinary support and menstruation regulation. So it'll keep things on time and balanced during menstruation. It can also be really good or really rough with mucous membranes and skin. But again, it helps find that balance. And while it does help with the immune system, it is an indirect help because it's more about getting the circulation, the inflammatory process moving, getting the blood moving, and some of the antiseptic qualities. So in and of itself, it's not an immune support system, but it gets things in the immune support moving within your system. So let's talk a little bit more about Yarrow's contradictions. Yarrow is a cooling herb. You know this. This is really strange because it is pungent, it is aromatic, it is rich in volatile oils, and it is stimulating. But it is a cooling herb. It is also drying. It is diuretic, it is diaphoretic, it has bitterness and astringency. So again, if you're looking at this, everything, it helps with the excess of either side of balance. So I like to call Yarrow the great balancing act because it brings you back to balance. It can be tightening the tissue tone. It can be relaxing. There's no easy way to describe Yarrow other than it brings you back to balance. It brings you back to that middle ground. It keeps you from getting stagnant. It keeps you from being in excess. It keeps you from being lax. It keeps you being too tense. It's going to bring you back. And it has antimicrobial and antiseptic properties, which help heal wounds. And it stops. And it's just an incredible contradiction of itself. And it does all this wonderful stuff. So let's look at this wounded warrior psychological picture here. Let's take a second and just really go back to Achilles and the wounded warrior. I'm trying to figure this out the best way without being too I don't know what word I'm looking for, but Achilles, Achillea, the first part of its name makes us think of Achilles. Achilles was a powerful warrior. he was almost invulnerable, except for the little heel where his mom dipped him in and didn't dip the heel. He was invulnerable. But he learned so much from Sharon, the healer, the centaur healer, and carried a wound that he could not heal. And the fact that this herb was able to heal is what gives us this warrior kind of thought behind it. It was used on battlefields. It was used for these people that we tend to think of as sometimes invulnerable, but they aren't. But they have this wonderful thing there right on the battlefield that they were able to. But it's very much a wounded warrior or even a wounded healer kind of psychology here. We have to look at it in that way. And when we're looking at Yarrow, we can look at it in terms of facing wounds that we often want to avoid, because not all wounds are physical. But Yarrow can help bring us back into balance. It can get our body back into balance, which can help us with our emotional and our spiritual sides. It is representative of people who face and confront and have courage in the face of battle, whether that battle is physical battle or working with our shadow side or working with a boss that we can't stand or something like that. It's part of that. It can help with integrating trauma. It's all these things that make us warriors in our own sense. And it can help bring all of this back into balance and keep us from being too excess or too lax and help us be more ourselves. So here's a couple of things I want to say. With fresh yarrow, I know with fresh yarrow you can do this. I wouldn't necessarily think you could do it with dried. But if you nick yourself shaving, take a leaf and just roll it in your fingers and put it on the nick where you cut yourself shaving, whether it's here, on your leg, whatever. It'll stop the bleeding. If you're trimming your pet's nails, and I know some of us do, trim our animals' nails still. We don't take them to the vet to do that or the groomer. And if you trim just a little too much, it's going to start bleeding. It's going to be hurt, sore, and everything. Take a leaf, roll it around a little bit, stick it on that nail. It's going to stop the bleeding. It's going to help with the pain. And yes, they're going to eat the leaf, but they're going to really hate it. But it will stop the bleeding and it will make them feel better. Also, if your child or you or your spouse or your partner or whoever falls down and scrapes a knee or elbow or something, take some leaves, put it on there, rub it on there. Again, it's going to make it feel better. They're not necessarily going to eat it like an animal would, but yeah, just really great to have around. So yarrow, definitely. Do I drink it as a tea? Only when I really have to, if I'm really not feeling good. But I will mix it with stuff that make it taste better. But yeah, that's a little bit of how, a couple of different ways you can use it to kind of real quick around the house, know that you're taking care of things. Plus with the antiseptic and the antimicrobial, putting it on a scrape, it's going to be awesome. So let's talk about, let me just sum this all up. We have talked about the most contradictive plant I've ever run across. Lots of them are contradictory, but this one is literally on either side of the extreme. And the more you learn about yarrow, the harder it comes to put it in a single category. And, maybe that's a good thing, because herbs shouldn't be used as a general kind of thing. They are used individually. Remember, we want to learn from the plant. What can it teach us? And this teaches us that we need to sometimes think outside the box and go with something that we wouldn't normally go with, because that's what's going to do the best job. And sometimes we need that. So it is an herb that herbalists normally love and use a whole lot. So don't be surprised if you see a lot of stuff with yarrow in it. This is one though I'm going to say, don't use it just to use it. Don't buy it in a supplement just to use it as a supplement. I don't normally say things like that because everything has its place, but yarrow really does have an individualized way of being used and should be used properly and should be used in the right context. So if you want to learn more about yarrow, let us know. It's definitely going to be in our class in October. So definitely keep that in mind. It's probably about time to wrap this up, but if you're interested in learning more about the Healing Storm Holistic Academy, you can find it on the Healing Storm website. I'd love to hear from you to know which herbs you're interested in, to know if you've used yarrow before and how it's affected you, or if you absolutely hated the taste like everybody else. So yeah, drop a line in and let us know. If you enjoyed the content and wanted to help us share it with others, please like, share, follow, subscribe. It helps us get the message out. And until next time, continue learning to continue to heal. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Healing Storm Apothecary Podcast. For more herbal education, plant wisdom, and natural wellness inspiration, be sure to follow, subscribe, and stay connected with Channin Storm as you continue building a deeper relationship with herbs and holistic living.
This episode is a proud production of the Everything Frederick Live Podcast Network, your home for Frederick's best podcasts, streaming daily on YouTube.